Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark. It is Monday, July 7th of 2025, and we are past free agency. It's been almost a week. We're very late to the party here, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what the team looks like. We're going to talk about if there's going to be any other moves that are going to happen, and as always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are we feeling today?
Parker, I feel great. Personally, all three kids were away for the weekend on our church retreat, so that was awesome for Gail and me. And speaking of Gail and me, we celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary tomorrow. Thank you. Looking for nice to have the kids back for that, and we're gonna spend one meal with them and one meal without them, so it should be good. And then, so thank you. And in terms of the Canucks, it's kind of weird because free agency was on last Tuesday, so this is probably within the 2 hours, the latest possible time that we could have done this show to recap and say it wasn't a week old.
Yeah. The worst time we could have done it would have been about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
That is true. Although we would be able to talk about the Demco and Garland extensions, because I think they announced those first, but we'll get into that timeline. But pretty cool stuff. At least we have stuff to talk about tonight.
Yeah. Not as much fireworks as we thought, but a shocker that I don't think we expected. I think we were very much the mindset that Brock Boeser was not in the cards anymore. That we'd have to be making a push with that money elsewhere. But of course, that's not the way that things went. Brock Boeser's coming back, which is going to be our main topic for the evening. But of course, other stuff as well, right? Demco and Garland coming back. The Canucks doing essentially nothing else over that week, and really I think overall an absolute bust of an NHL free agency period for all the cap space that teams are getting over the next couple of years, including this year. I think we expected some fireworks to happen, and I think we got pretty much nothing.
That's what happens, Parker, when next year's UFA crop includes McDavid, Panarin, Eichel, Bobrovsky. Like, it's pretty crazy next year.
I think we were surprised at how many people re-signed with their former teams, right? Especially, the Florida guys, right? Aaron Ekblad being a big name that was expected to get $10 million a year, and he's getting $6 million, right? You have Brad Marchand getting signed till he's 43. You've got, Sam Bennett sticking around. So really Florida is going to remain a problem. And not a lot else really happened, right? We had some signings later on, right? Like Nick Ehlers taking an extra day before he ends up going to Carolina. But really, and then like Burns going to Colorado again late, a bit down the line. But
speaking of old guys, it
was there just didn't feel like there was a lot of fireworks, right? Sitting down watching TSN and Sportsnet that day, and the one day that I had Twitter open because I needed the real time updates. It was a pretty boring July 1st.
By the way, a lot of props. You're getting a lot of compliments on your setup, the Besser jersey and the Besser jersey. Yeah, the two. I just realized when you moved your head, it was two Besser jerseys. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, I actually have one more that doesn't have his name on the back, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. I got the Sprite one that I always forget because I never wear it because it's not a great jersey.
And people already knew this, but you're way more humble than I am. I have a picture of myself behind me, so.
That's close.
Thank you.
These are just hanging from my blinds. It's not very, it's not the nicest setup.
So if we go, it's funny because we did a show exactly a week ago. It was Monday night, June the 30th, and we knew that they didn't announce signings starting at 9 a.m. But I guess if we go chronologically, sure, we can spend the most time on Besser. But before that, we heard basically back-to-back announcements, and we talked about it last week. We definitely knew the Garland one was coming, and we anticipated that the Demco one was coming. But when you actually saw it in print, let's start with Garland. 6x6. He's remarkably like a consistent 50-point guy for us. He's been great, actually. Maybe not a 50-point guy on other teams, but on the Vancouver Canucks, he's a 50-point guy. What do you like? Do you like the term? Do you like the money?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because 6x6 is immediate flashbacks to Louis Eriksson. Connor Garland has been a much more effective player here than Louis Eriksson was.
Yes.
Connor Garland at the 4.95 that he's been making has been about even value, I would say. And getting a raise up to 6 with what the cap is doing, I think the actual math was his cap hit percentage actually goes down over that time. And of course, over the as that contract gets older, the cap's going to go up and up and up, and it'll be an even lower percentage than it is now. Connor Garland strikes me as a player that I don't see having a big drop off. He has one more year at that 4.95, and then he'll play with us until he's 35, 36, somewhere in there, which essentially makes him a Canuck for most of the rest of his career, which is great. I have no real problem with it. It feels like a lot, but with where things are going right now, like it's not that crazy.
Yeah, all good points, especially about the percentage of cap hit. And Garland, I was actually impressed or surprised when he did that media availability. It's kind of funny. I don't know, he's so casual. He's like talking. He's got like his foot up on the thing. The camera's zooming up from the worst angle ever. But he said a lot of complimentary things about Vancouver, a lot of things. And one thing that I've heard him, Demco, maybe not so much Demco, but him and Besser talk about is that they really feel like last year was an anomaly with the drama, with the injuries, and he wants to see this through. And I think in the bigger picture, when you zoom out, 3 American guys that wanting to stay in Vancouver, that bodes well, maybe hope for a 4th one, which we can talk about later. But I really like what Garland had to say, and I think he's a consummate teammate, kind of an underrated teammate, I would say.
I didn't realize it was muted. I don't know how that happened. Real heart and soul guy on the team, right? Like, he's the guy who's going to go dig in the corners. I love seeing him spin. That's always a plus.
Very busy player. Yes.
Yeah. He always looks like he's doing more than he is, which is, it's a decent thing to do. Terms on this one are interesting. First 3 years, full no move. And then I think the last 3 years are a 15-team no trade. Right. Which seems fine to me, right? If you're at if we're talking about a team that's not in the playoffs 4 years from now, like, we've got other problems. So I have no real issues with it. Again, he's a guy that, you want to keep around. He's obviously going to play this year, but it's one less question mark going into next season. And really there's not a ton of question marks going into 2026-27, right? Especially up front. Actually, in the overall roster, right? You look at, pending UFAs for the Canucks after this year. It's Evander Kane, who's already a question mark. It's Teddy Bluger. It's Kiefer Sherwood, and that's really it. I guess Derek Forbert, if you want to go to the defensive side. Everyone else is under team control for the most part. I guess Magnus Carlson's kind of a question mark, and some of the AHL guys as well. But for the most part, this team is, the team that's been assembled is going to be together next year as well. So there's not going to be a lot of noise around pending free agents, right? The big guys are all signed. Obviously, there's one bit of noise that there will be, because they will be going into free agency the following year. That's Quinn Hughes, but that will be the dominant piece of that news cycle. Yeah.
Thank you, Fangirl. Proclaim your membership for 36 months. And thank you, Daniel, for 6 months. We appreciate both of you. All right, before we move on to Demco, let's do something real fun. Real fun. It'll be fast, I promise. Let's say Canucks After Dark are building a 15-team no-trade list. So we're just going back and forth really quickly. This will take a minute. Okay, give me your first team that you are putting on that list.
Buffalo.
Okay. I like that. I will go, I'm going to go Islanders.
Okay. Buffalo was the only easy one for me, because I'd just be stoked to be playing.
Yeah, don't get offended, but anyone who's from any of these places, okay? Just relax.
Columbus.
Yep. That was actually going to be mine. I'm going to go Ottawa.
See, I'd be fine playing in Ottawa.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's go with Utah.
Okay, Seattle. Too close to home. Seattle's mine.
I guess Boston. That's just a personal one. Maybe not a very smart. Actually, they're kind of bad right now.
That's fair. Now this is getting tricky, because now some of these teams actually are going to be better than the Canucks. I'm going Anaheim.
Okay, not a big Disneyland guy.
No, I've been there, done that. Yeah, whatever.
Calgary.
I can't believe I forgot that one. Yeah, that's a good one. Do I go Detroit? How could I say no to? Yeah, I'll go Detroit.
I'll go San Jose.
Okay. I'm not going to say Montreal because I can't. Montreal, Toronto, Minnesota.
Philly. I don't think I'd do well under Rick's system.
Okay, we got one more. We got one more each. Pittsburgh, just because I think they're going to be bad for a long time.
Yep, probably. Do we take Nashville?
No, that's the last one.
That
All
would
right,
be
so
my
the Canucks
last one.
After Dark official 15-team no trade list. Buffalo, Islanders, Columbus, Ottawa, Utah, Seattle, Boston, Anaheim, Calgary, Detroit, San Jose, Minnesota, Philly, Pittsburgh, and Nashville.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think personally I'd have to put Toronto on there.
Yeah.
But as a hockey player, it's probably you'd probably be fine playing there.
Right, and we didn't have any time to prepare. Parker didn't know I was going to do it. I didn't even know I was going to do it. I just think it's a cool exercise, just a quick, spontaneous thing. And yeah, there's so many factors, right? Do you actually like the city? Do you think the team's going to be good? Do you like the culture? There's so many things. So, and that was
That's why I
very,
look
very
at,
quick.
Like something like Chicago. Like Chicago's bad, but it's like I'd be probably a great place to live.
Yeah.
Right? And like
Yeah,
even
yeah,
same with like Boston and the Rangers, things like that. But
Yeah. I like that. Very good. Okay, thanks, Parker. I'm going to keep this. We'll do this every year. Okay.
Excellent.
That was good. Demco.
All right.
8.5 times 3.
A lot of money. A lot of money for a goaltender that has some health issues, and that's obviously the immediate red flag, but not a ton of term. 3
Right.
years.
Right.
Obviously, is playing this year at $5 million. So it's 4 years total remaining with Thatcher Demco. $5 million this year, so we have a $9.5 million goalie tandem. But keep in mind, Kevin Lankinen is signed for 4 more years after this one as well. So the Canucks are locked in at a $13 million goalie tandem, one of which has a no move, Thatcher Demko, for those 3 years. I guess they technically could trade him this year because he doesn't have that no move clause this year. But Kevin Lankinen has that a no move this year and next year, and the last 3 years he has our patented 15-team no trade list.
Yes. And Lankinen can borrow our list if he wants to. That's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 13, and the thing is, a 15-team no trade list for a goalie is very effective, I think, because you can get very picky and choosy on what teams don't need you. And just be like, and don't put them on your list, right?
Yeah.
And you can make it pretty close to a full no trade. So yeah, it's a lot of money for a tandem that, if healthy, is probably one of the best goaltending tandems in the league. If you are getting healthy Thatcher Demko with a full training camp, a full season of prep, full off season of prep, and you are getting 2023-24 Thatcher Demko instead of 2024-25 Thatcher Demko, where he was in like an 889 or whatever his save percentage was, as opposed to the 918 that he had the year before, something like that.
Wow, right.
You really get, I got those numbers exactly right.
That's good.
Yeah, so if you're getting 918 Demko, then I'm okay paying him 8.5. If you're getting 889 Demko, that is going to be a problem.
Yeah. And then for when his contract kicks in, he will be fourth highest paid player. You got Shesterkin, Price's account, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, and it'll be tied with Connor at 8.5.
And I think, again, healthy Demko playing as he can is in that tier, right?
Yeah.
He's at the bottom of that tier, I would say. Like I'd say, Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, Hellebuck are probably your top 3. And then Demko, I think I'd be fine with him as your 4, right? And then Bobrovsky around there as well. Obviously, he's making 10, but I think he's on the last tier of that deal. It's a lot of money. It's a little concerning. But if you're getting the Thatcher Demko that's going to steal you games, then it's worth every penny. It's a risky contract.
Yeah, and a couple, Alfred, you make a good point. I wanted 7.25, but then Irvin's right. if the Canucks only want him to sign for 3 years as opposed to 5, you have to increase the annual average value. So that's probably why we're at 8.5. I think there's part of negotiation about Pride saying, I want to make close to what Hellebuck, Ottinger, and Swayman are, right? The 3 guys he's always compared to as his fellow American guys. Probably the 3 guys, the 4 of them are going to be the compete. Well, I think Hellebuck's a luck, but the 4 guys probably competing for USA roster spot, right? Are those 4? So, and they all make between 8.25 and 8.5. I don't know the terms. I guess that's not the best comparison, but I did notice that right away, Parker, is that he does make the same as Hellebuck, and he makes a tiny bit more than Swayman and Ottinger.
Yeah, and I would rather have him in my net than Swayman or Ottinger, right? I think the number is a fair spot. It's just that health risk.
Sure.
Now there is always the out of LTIR if something were to happen health wise. Mm-hmm. And then also, you do have Kevin Lankinen as your fallback, but this begs obviously the bigger question, and that is, where does Archer Shelovs go? Because he's no longer waiver exempt going into this season. They're not going to carry 3 goaltenders. Yeah. And there is no doubt in my mind that if he went on waivers, he would get claimed. Yeah. Goaltenders typically don't have fantastic trade value, especially unproven ones at the NHL level. So you're probably not getting a huge return if you were to move him. So all of that to say, what do you foresee happening in the next couple of months here?
Yeah, so Kevin Woodley, Parker, had an interesting theory. He says that he's not convinced. I'm with you. I think you do lose them on waivers, but Kevin Woodley's not convinced that Shelovs would get picked up on waivers, because he says any team that picks him up, because he's waiver exempt, basically is saying, we're keeping this guy on our primary roster, right? So if you're proven at the Worlds, he was MVP. If you're proven at AHL, MVP. But we could argue that he was okay in the playoff run, but he wasn't amazing. He was good. Is he proven at the NHL level? So you have to be confident that you're getting that you can keep him on your roster, keep him up in the NHL, and that he'll contribute. And maybe people will see that, but that's what Woodley's point was, that whole don't be so quick to assume that he's going to get picked up. Do you buy that argument?
I struggle to.
Okay.
Because I first team I thought of San Jose.
Okay.
Bad team, right?
Yeah.
Their goaltending tandem, as it sits right now, is Alex Nedeljkovic. Mm-hmm. He's got 1 year left at 2.5, and Yaroslav Oskarov, who makes $2 million, but is waiver exempt. So they could, in theory,
great point,
send him to the A for another year, right? He's 23. When does he turn 24? This does not say.
Oh, I didn't know he's waiver exempt. Wow.
But he is waiver exempt. And, he was really good in the AHL last year, but struggled a little bit in the NHL, right? So if they say, hey, we're just going to take a flyer on this guy, we can have Askarov spend another year in the A. Worst case, Shelovs doesn't do well, we swap him out, we put him on waivers, we trade him, we do whatever, right? That's just the first team I clicked on, right?
Yeah, that's good.
What other bad teams are there?
See who's a goaltender for Anaheim right now. It's Dostal, and because Gibson got traded, so...
Yeah, it's Mrazek and Ville Husso and
what did Dostal go?
So they're probably not. They're probably not in the market.
Who's Chicago's goalies?
You look at like a Columbus. They've got Jet Greaves, although he's fantastic last year in his limited play time. But I imagine he might be waiver exempt as well. Actually, maybe he's not. No, it doesn't look like he is. But you sort of get my point, right? Like,
I do.
You don't have to have one team not take him, right? You have to have 31 teams not take him.
True.
And that's the tricky part.
True.
Because there's a lot of teams that, or what if one team has a goaltender get injured in the preseason? Even if it's like a minor injury, maybe they're out for a month. Like, we'll just get this guy to be our backup, and then maybe we can flip him down the line.
Good point.
Right?
Good point.
So that's sort of where how it looks to me, right? I mean, like Nashville, their backup is Justice Anunen.
Who?
He's not been very good. Exactly, right? So I could see teams, it just takes one team to pull the trigger to bring him in.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good counter argument. So on his own, he's probably only worth 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick, right? That we're not getting anything more for if it was just 1-for-1.
You're not getting a lot. You
Yeah.
can use him as like as an upgrade piece in a trade.
Yeah.
You know, but like he's not getting you your number 2 center, right? That's
Not by
that's
himself. Yeah.
That's not where we're at, right?
Yeah.
He might, if you were trading a number 2 center to another team for their number 2 center, and you wanted a slightly better number 2 center, then he might help you get that. But that's about it. So yeah, it's a tricky spot.
It is. Yeah, Alvin was on that podcast with John Shannon and Leonard Ferraro, and he said when they asked him point blank about Shilovs, he actually said they're going to try and make a decision in the next 2 weeks, and one of those decisions could be that they decide to go with 3 goalies, but that's such a waste of a roster spot.
Yeah, and it sucks for Shilovs, right? Because now you have your goaltender who is, 23, 24 years old, that, you clearly think is worth keeping around, and he's not going to play games.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to practice a heck of a lot, but, he wouldn't play any games, and that feels like a waste for his development.
So have you seen these kind of packages floating around where it's him, Hoglander, and a prospect? I've seen that floated around. Basically, Shilovs as one of 2 or 3 pieces, and maybe I don't even know if that's enough to get. Maybe it is enough to get you 2C. Well, I don't know what 2C we're talking about though. Like,
well, the thing is, if we're of the mindset, or if anyone's of the mindset that he's not going to get taken on waivers, then he has no trade value.
Good point too.
Right? Unless, well, at that point, he doesn't get any trade value until he clears waivers. Yeah. Right? If you were able to send him down to the AHL, you could then trade him because another team would be able to keep him in the AHL.
Right.
But at that point, you've already solved your problem in getting him to the AHL, so you wouldn't need to trade him. So, he really has, and that's why I think he does have a little value, because I'm sure there's going to be one team out there that would rather have him as their backup. Yeah. And it's going to be, it's probably not going to be a playoff team, but it'll be a team that's like, hey, maybe in 3 years he's a starter, or maybe in 2 years he's a starter. We're going to take that bet and have him be our backup for the time being, because when we are starting to contend, that might be a useful piece for us.
So the Canucks will want to trade him. So at least, even if it's a little bit incremental, you get some value for him. Teams will not want to trade for him because they say, why give up assets when we could potentially pluck him off waivers, but then you're going, again, depending on where you're ranked, right? What your order is. So this is going to be very interesting to watch. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot can happen.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think they'll trade him, and I think it's going to be underwhelming. But I think that's just sort of the way it has to go, right? I just don't really see the alternative. I think, your job is to manage the assets you have. And you've put yourself in this position as the Canucks, right? You've made the decision to give Lankinen that much term. And frankly, I would rather have Kevin Lankinen as my backup than Artur Shilovs, especially for a team that's pushing to make the playoffs, that we know is probably going to need every point they can get to get there, right? And Lankinen's gonna give that value. So
yeah. Okay. I think that's good. So 9 million next year for the 2 goalies. Okay, 13.5 goes up, but hopefully the cap goes up. And I get it. It's all relative. I know, but 3 years. Yeah, it's the only way you're gonna get 3 years if you bump that average annual value. So I'm okay with it. I think it's of the 3, the Besser, Garland, and Demco, it's the least attractive to me. Okay, so here's the quick questions, just so we kind of rank them as we go. Do you like Demco 8.5 times 3 or Kane 5.125 times 1?
I think you're probably going to get more value out of Demko. But the 1 year makes that Evander Kane contract so easy to get rid of if you need to. Yeah,
that's fair.
Or you just suffer through it. Thinking more about the Demko one, like, again, we haven't seen healthy Demko much. But I remember when Bobrovsky signed that $10 million a year contract, which was too much at the time, right? Like, we can all agree that was a lot of money to pay a goalie. Even one of Bobrovsky's skill. But if Demko is a top 5 goalie in the league, Like you can clearly build around that, right?
Yeah.
Florida showed that you can. So it's not this anchor, right? Even if you look at that, and you know, I saw people in the chat saying I'd rather have paid him 7.125 or 7.25, let's say. That's 1% of the cap of a difference, right? In the long run, that's not a huge difference maker, because you'd be talking about a team that, you know, obviously it doesn't affect this year. But if it had affected this year, just for, you know, playing with money's sake, right now the Canucks have $800K of cap space. You know, in that theoretical world, maybe they have $2 million of cap space. I still don't think they're doing a lot with it. And I think you can get flexible to make that room. It would be nicer if we just didn't have the OEL buyout on the books, if we just never made that trade. You know, or, you know, we're still paying Ilya Mikheyev $700K this year. But yeah, it's, you know, these are, in relative terms, they're small amounts of money.
Yep.
And I've always said I would much rather overpay my good players than overpay my bad players.
Oh, that's a good saying. I like that one, actually. Well, I think there's one player we did overpay, but hopefully he'll be good this year. So, okay. You ready to talk about the big one?
The big one. Yes. Yeah.
What was your reaction? 7 times 7.25.
I was surprised. So when did it happen? Let's see.
Dan Murphy was the first. Dan Murphy was the first to break it.
He was at the exact same time, essentially, as Freeman. I think Murphy did it on TV, which was,
wow.
I don't remember. So he had, let's get this one and this one. So he tweeted at 9:24 a.m. on July 1st. I'm not saying it's a good chance the Canucks sign Besser, but it's not no chance, which is where I thought things were earlier this morning.
Yep.
And then 4 minutes later, he tweeted 7.25 times 7 for Besser in Vancouver. Yeah, I was surprised. I had notifications on, and I got those coming through right away, and I just was fully expecting to see Besser sign somewhere, especially after 9 a.m. Right? We had always, you know, we had heard they're going to make one last push, yada yada, right? But once you hit 9 a.m. and it's open market, I just expected, okay, that's it. You know, maybe we're pushing for Pius Suter, but that's, you know, Besser's not in the cards anymore. My instant reaction was, okay, I thought Besser would get more, but I didn't think Besser was worth more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the conversation we had. We were like, look, Besser's going to get $7 by $8 million or $8.5 million, and that's going to be too much money. Yeah. However, with the other contracts we saw handed out, 7.25 by 7, it has the opportunity to, again, not age fantastically, but I think there's a lot of value in keeping a guy like Besser around, right? Yeah. I think we've seen this, you know, there's a bit of maybe like a friend group sort of thing, you know, the Garland, Demco, Besser, and Hughes, like they seem close, which is good. And what it does is it locks up a guy who everyone loves for most of the rest of his career, right? Yeah. So my initial reaction was, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. I don't know what else we would have spent the money on. So this prevents us from doing anything dumb. So I'm okay.
So, you know, and I'll tell you my reaction in a second, but your reaction, as I anticipated, it was analytical, practical is probably a better way to put it, because I'm not saying you didn't have any emotion. What was the actual emotion you felt?
I was fired up. I'm a huge Brock Boeser fan, right? Yeah. He's not my favorite player on the team. That's Quinn Hughes, because just because of his skating alone. But I think, you know, Besser's number 2, right?
Yeah.
He's the longest tenured Canuck, which is crazy. He was drafted 10 years ago. There's a reason I got a couple of Besser jerseys behind me.
Yeah.
You know, I literally that day, like within the hour, I was watching Game 4 against Nashville.
Oh, me too.
Just watching those highlights again, because that was fantastic. I'm like, yeah, this is the guy that you are getting when he's on, right?
How about that move? Yeah.
That's worth every penny to me.
That Hughes put on that defense, that forward at the. He broke his ankles, and then for Besser to have the wherewithal to reach back and we can do a whole show
net on the backhand,
And you see Miller, you know, calling for the play. It was so many good things on that play. Okay, so as you could probably guess, I had some practical thought in it. Yeah, good contract, but because Parker, I'd resigned myself to losing him. I was pumped up too. I was excited because to me, I'd already written him off, right? I mean, then I started to. I remember us talking about this last week. I started to almost say, yeah, he's going to be slow. He's going to be 7 years. Oh, too bad. It's going to. But then. For the people defending it, which I'm one of them, this return, he's always been slow. Yep. So he's found way because he's got a great shot, he's got a great mind, he's got great determination, as we just talked about, wonderful hands, getting better defensively. Still not the best, but and he's not slight of build either. Like he's a decent build. So he's worked at all these things to mitigate the lack of foot speed, which is obviously still always going to be an issue. But there's all these good things too. So 7.25. I like what you said. Comparative speaking, Dvorak and others, making 5.4 for a year. This number was pretty good. It was one of the better values on that day.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I don't have. You mentioned he's always been slow, right?
Yeah.
That takes a lot of my concern away on the aging of this contract, right?
Right.
Because if you have a guy whose bread and butter is their skating, and they are just faster and they're more agile than everyone. Well, that's as they get slower, their game falls off, right? Besser's never been a burner, right? He's been a guy who finds the soft spots of the ice and finds them very well and has a good enough shot to capitalize.
Yeah.
And if that's as long as he can keep doing that, which doesn't take speed, it just takes smarts, really. The contract can age fairly well. So is it risk free? No, of course not. It's $50 million. But on the same front, with the cap going where it's going, like $50 million is, 7.25 a year. It's not that much, right? He was what was he making before? 6.65?
6.65. Yeah.
So he's making the same amount of money essentially, but a lower cap percentage by a good number. By the time you get to 2028, 29, his cap hits by percentage compared to when the 6.65 contract was signed is going to be like almost half, I have to imagine, right?
Right.
Right. It's going to be, with the cap going where it is, actually the numbers are here, aren't they? Oh, I just have the current one. But as of right now, that contract is 7.6% of the cap. When he signed his previous contract, it was 8% of the cap. So it is a lower percentage of the cap than that last contract that was signed.
Wow.
And that one, he was an RFA, right? There was a couple RFA years in there. So if he's the player he was last year, it's not going to be a fantastic contract, but it's not going to kill you. If he's the player he was the year before, it's a steal. The 40 goals obviously was big, but I mean that playoff, right? 7 goals, 5 assists, 12 points in 12 games. If you're getting a player that can do that, and of course not having JT Miller is going to hinder that a fair bit, and I think that's something that we all know. But if he's able to find a line mate like he had with JT Miller, and you're not going to get one of the same caliber unless you're with Pettersson and you're able to get that going again. Yeah. Then he'll find a way.
Yeah. We've always talked about, Parker, how you naturally overvalue your own players, especially when it comes to hypothetical trades and whatever it may be. But I think one thing, and I don't think we're overhyping this, is we just spent 10 minutes to 7 minutes talking about his on-ice stuff, how good he is, and his deficiencies. But off the ice, fans love this guy. He's great in the community. He's I'm sure he's part of this leadership team with Demco, Pettersson, and Hughes. And just all around good person, and he's a feel-good story. Fans really want to root for him. That's why both you and I were happy that he got re-signed. So I think that's a big part of this too. That's why I like this contract a lot, and why I'm glad that he's going to be, in essence, as you said, finish his career here.
Yeah, and you immediately get the Thatcher Demco Instagram post, right, on his story that just says, "Thank you, sweet baby Jesus, thank you."
Yeah, I didn't know Demco's religious. That was good. Yeah.
You get Connor Garland's Instagram post, which is him with a mirror pic with his baby and Besser and Hughes, right? Like there's for all the garbage that happened last year, we keep hearing sort of the same thing from a lot of these guys. and that is, there was last year was a bit of a disaster. We're past it. It's a new team, new coach, same core group.
Yeah.
Last year was a write-off. That's
Yeah.
that's the vibe that they're pushing across, and
Yeah.
I'm really, really hoping that that's how it goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to offer you 10 players, and I want you to make 3 lines from me. So the 3 left wingers are DeBrusk, Kane, and Joshua, presuming none of these guys get traded. The 3 centers we're going to talk about are Petey, Hito, and Ratu. I know it's not the best. And the 3 right wingers are Besser, Garland, and you can have your choice of Sherwood or Hoglander. Okay? How do you line these guys up?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, your first line, I think you try to keep Pedersen and DeBrusk together. I think that's your number one. And if we stick with what we've always stuck with, which is the pairs, right?
Yeah.
You sort of have 2 guys you keep together, and then I guess if you do that though, are you going Hedel and Kane as a pair, or do you try to put Kane with Pedersen? I think I'd prefer DeBrusk with Pedersen, although I know Kane can play both wings. I think I would. I think I'd probably go Pedersen, DeBrusk, and Besser. And I know Pedersen and Besser hasn't always worked.
Yeah.
It has to at some point. It just has to. I always just think back to that game against Colorado from what is this, like 6 years ago now.
November.
This game.
Yeah.
When he did the bank pass off the boards to Besser from his own zone. Like that was the peak of Pedersen and Besser, and it was a long time ago. But I think if Pedersen is on, and I know we keep saying if Pedersen is on, but I'm hoping he was really hurt last year.
Me too.
If Pedersen is Pedersen, and then I think him and Besser will work fine, and I think DeBrusk will work there. So I think you just put your 3 best players on your top line and hope for the best.
Do you think Pedersen, Besser, Kane is too slow? Well, Kane's
do.
pretty fast. Yeah, no. Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of. I just don't know if there's a lot of creation there. I just don't. It just doesn't feel right to me, and I don't know if that's rational or not.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you. You're gonna go to your second
okay.
line. Yeah.
That's okay. And then I think Hedel's your 2C.
Yep.
Right now, I think there's no doubt about that. And then I think. I don't know if I want Kane there or if I want Hoglander there.
Yeah.
On the left side, because they're both lefties. So you could go, and I know you gave me Hoglander as a right-handed option.
I did.
But
Yeah.
I'm
You put him
breaking
where
the
we
rules.
All right.
Because he is left-handed. I wouldn't hate, Hoglander, Hedel, Garland. It's a fast, grindy, you got Hoglander and Garland working the corners. And then that leaves you with what?
Kane, Joshua, Ratu, just to pound people.
Yeah, well, don't forget about Sherwood there too,
and Sherwood.
right?
Yeah.
So you go Joshua. I don't know what you do with Joshua there. You go Bluger or Ratu, Sherwood, and Kane, and then Joshua's on your 4th.
That's true.
It takes some juggling. The thing is, we say this: Game 3 is different than Game 1, and they're different lines already. But I think you just got to stack the top of your lineup, and make things work out.
Okay, I like that. I was thinking this kind of. I go PD between Kane and Hoglander, because at least Hoglander can be a dog there a little bit. Then I put Hedel with his speed between DeBrusk and Besser, and then I go Garland and Joshua with Ratu or Bluger. Technically, and then they've had success, and then that leaves Ratu with Sherwood and anyone of O'Connor or Carlson or Oman or Baines or Sasser. So who knows?
Pick one from the crowd. Yeah. And I wouldn't hate any of that. That all sounds fine to me. My only issue is if we really want Pedersen going, we want him playing, we want him getting good ice time, and I don't know that I want Kane getting that much ice time.
Yeah. Fair.
That's my only. I'm fine with Hoglander getting, if we're getting good Hoglander. Which I think we will. So we'll see on that front.
Very good. And then our D, I think we're set except for the third pairing. We got Hughes, Ronick, Myers, Pedersen.
Third pairing's electric. Pedersen, Mancini.
I like it. And then
Well,
what's forward?
it's probably Forbert.
Yeah.
I would think on the left. Pedersen's probably your 7. Even though I
Yeah.
think he's made the team. He should make the team.
You can play him over Mancini on the right.
Yeah, I
could.
guess you could put him on the right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then then you start Verlander. As much as we want to see him, you start him in Abbotsford, get it because he hasn't even played pro yet. And then I guess Joseph, our newly acquired Pierre Olivier Joseph.
Yes.
He can be our 8, I guess.
And Brisebois still here.
That's right. We went over the 4 RFA guys, and he was one of them.
Yeah, he's still
Okay.
here. Noah Juleson is gone.
Yes. So great segue. We didn't even plan this, but we kind of know. So the 2 UFAs that are gone are Juleson with Rick Tocchet in Philly, and then Pius Suter signs 2 years, 8.3, so 4.15 in St. Louis. What were your thoughts when you heard that? Well, obviously, when Besser signed, we just look at the cap numbers. Unless the Canucks made a move, we knew that wasn't going to happen. So then Suter did not get signed on July 1st. Was he a July 2 or July 3 guy? July 2?
He was July 2.
Okay.
Yes.
What'd you think? What'd you think of the term and the number and the team? All 3.
Seems like a pretty decent deal. 4.125, I think it was. For
Yeah.
2 years. I mean,
That sounds right.
Look, if he's your third line center, that's a little expensive, but for the player that he is, I think he's shown that he's more valuable than just being a 3C, right? He's an elite penalty killer. You can put him on your second power play.
Yeah.
Again, he fits everywhere. But Canucks don't really have the room, right?
Correct.
But I would have taken him at that cap hit. Noah Juleson getting signed like immediately after 9, if I remember correctly. It was like Rick Tocchet got his guy, which was funny. But no, I think the Blues are going to do just fine with that contract.
Yeah, it's so funny, and you'd appreciate this as a content creator. So I just done a video on Demco and Garland, which is fine because they were announced within a minute of each other. And then I'm sitting here, right here in the spot, just kind of thinking, okay, I won't do a live stream. I just want to be able to react really quickly if anything happens. And then Noah Juleson gets signed to Tocchet. So I'm sitting here, Parker, and I know you can appreciate the struggle. I'm trying to figure out, will anyone care if I do a video about an ex-Canuck who is very loyal? Maybe the angle is that he's going to Philly with Rick Tocchet. So at least there's an angle there. It's not just some rando, right? Yeah, like some guy going to some random team. So as I'm debating it, I see Murphy's tweet and I'm like, forget it. I don't have to do this Juleson video. Yeah, about the Besser one. I said, done.
That
Decision.
bailed you out.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, the Juleson would have been 10 out of 10 and not in a good way. You know what I mean about the YouTube rankings.
Yes. Yeah, you would not have gotten a lot of love on that one.
Okay, before we go, I was just thinking, did you follow any of the development camp? None of the Abbotsford Canucks were there because they basically finished playing a week and a half before that.
Yeah, it seems a little early, but
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah.
yeah.
Apparently,
no, I didn't
Coots-
follow any of it.
Okay, so really, apparently Coots looked really good from the highlights I saw too. Medvedev, the second round goaltender, that guy's funny, man. If you ever watch, I think we talked about this last week. If you ever watched any of his interviews, he's pretty funny. That Medvedev kid, and then I don't know any of the other guys really.
No. Well, you could have packaged this one in with your Noah Juleson video. Phil DiGiuseppe.
Of course,
To the Jets.
I forgot about him
Yeah, and his great moment just a couple weeks ago.
flipping the.
Yeah. So that one's, again, he's in that pile of, guys that, can play NHL games, but the Canucks have a lot of guys at that level.
Yeah, exactly. Did you get a chance to poke around and see what other teams were doing, like who you thought did well in free agency, or at least any of the free agents that you were really interested in going? Obviously, Carolina got Nick Ehlers, and they traded for K'Andre Miller, so that's 2 big players at the top of the lineup.
Yeah, I'm trying to find like the ranking of the most important ones with the biggest dollar values, but I'm struggling to get a good article or anything.
That defenseman, is it Gavrikov, the guy who left LA to go to New York? Is it Gavrikov? Is that his name? Yeah, he got a big contract.
He got a lot of money.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger ones, for sure. Besser's was big.
Let's see. Okay, I've got NHL signing. Let's go back to July 1.
Yeah.
We've got there's quite a few signings apparently. It's almost like it was free agency day.
Yeah, Sammy, I'm with you. Not a fan of LA moves. Dumoulin and Cece. Yeah, they spent a lot of money for two not really good defensemen.
Okay, I'm gonna filter to only guys who are making at least 3% of the cap
Okay, that's a good filter.
because that seems like a good number.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got? We've got, let's get all the way here. Andrei Kuzmenko, Kings, 1 year, 4.3.
Okay. That's fine.
Connor Garland, 6x6. Carolina extended Stankoven, 8 years, $6 million a year.
That's right.
It's just so stupid cheap, man.
I know.
That's gonna age fantastically.
They made that situation good. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. They turned out they did pretty well.
The ranting.
Yeah, Gavrikov 7x7 is a lot. Oh yeah, there's a couple good Kings ones in here. I forgot about. That was
CC and Dumoulin.
Cody Cece and Dumoulin a combined $8.5 million. That's just awful, man. That's all. Ken Holland. It's Ken Holland doing work.
He took a step. Yeah, LA Kings take a step back. I'm calling them to miss the playoffs this year. I really am.
I honestly they had a good year and they got worse. They got markedly worse over the last month. They're a 105-point team last year. So I don't know if they're dropping
bad enough
10 points, but they might. And that would be lovely if they could open that door.
Mm-hmm.
Former Canuck Nate Schmidt going to Utah.
Yep.
Who else? Mikael Granlund, 3 years in Anaheim at $7 million.
Oh, that's right. He was the $7 million. That's right.
Yes, and we were sort of rumored to be kicking around that door for a 2C, but that's again he's 33. It's a lot of money. Keandre Miller. He got the sign and trade, right?
Yep.
And that was to Carolina.
Yes.
That was a big trade. Good player, but that's
New York got a lot.
Morrow, 2026 first, top 10 protected, and a second. And then who else we have? Any other big ones? Yeah, Pew Suter we already talked about. Morgan Frost in Calgary. Then Nick Ehlers to Carolina, of course, 6 by 8.5. Would you rather Nick Ehlers 6 by 8.5 or Brock Boeser 7 by 7?
I'm showing my recency bias or my bias. I take Brock's.
I think I would too. Again, we kept talking about how they were effectively, statistically, the same player.
And I kept talking about how much I wanted Nick Ehlers.
Yeah. Well, I remember because we had these conversations like, man, Nick Ehlers would be great. But then we always look at the stats and we're like, wow, he's got the same stats as Brock Boeser. Basically.
Yeah.
It's the similar profiles at the very least too. Cam York in Philly, 5 by 5.1. But he's young. He's 24. Jack McBain in Utah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Taylor reminded us that this one happened at the draft, the Dobson sign and trade. That was big. Yeah. That was big. Okay. Yeah. Someone asked me on one of my member videos, give me a team in each conference that's going to drop out of the playoff picture. So I picked King. I know it's a big drop now that you mentioned it, 10 points, but I still picked the Kings in the West. And, I'm not sold on New Jersey, actually. I know they had injuries, but
they got in under the wire last year, right?
They did.
Got in at 91 because the East wasn't very good. But you also have to think of who's taken that spot, right? Because the Habs snuck in, but they were in. Columbus got hot and just missed.
I really think the Rangers are going to bounce back. I really do.
Man, they might, but they also could be a tire fire.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope they are because it would be kind of funny. Who makes a push, right? If we look in the West, right, the Jets are fine, the Stars are fine, the Avs are fine. Vegas is fine, Edmonton's fine. LA, they're a good team. I think they got worse. But I don't know if they got bad enough to drop out. But you look at Minnesota, you look at St. Louis, you look at Calgary and us, and you look at Utah. I think Utah got a little bit better. And they could be a problem. again, 96 points wasn't good enough for the Flames to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
91 points was good enough for the Devils and the Habs to make the playoffs on the East. So, the East is very top heavy. The West is bottom heavy and sort of middle of the pack heavy. Some things are going to have to shake up, which I'm sure they will. But you give this team a year of not much drama and a healthy Demko and a healthy Pettersson, and there's no reason to think this team can't at least be in the mix.
Do you have time for this argument? Vancouver and Utah replace LA and Minnesota.
Yeah, I have time for that. Minnesota doesn't excite me in any way.
Yeah.
They were sort of steady all year, and I think they were hot at one point and sort of fell off a little bit. St. Louis had that ungodly run to get in. Right?
So great. Frustrating watching that.
Yeah, like they just didn't lose for the last month and a half of the season and got in. So I who knows where their middle is. If their middle's around that 96 points, they'll be okay. But yeah, the Wild, I could see the Wild falling. I could see a lot of these teams falling at least a bit, right? Yeah. Like even Colorado, but I don't think they're dropping enough.
Right.
But they'll probably be around 100 points. And the Kings, I just don't see the Kings as a 105-point team. Yeah. After the moves they made, maybe a 98-point team.
Sure.
Maybe hanging on. But again, that's a couple coin flips away from falling out.
I'm giggling, Parker. I'm anticipating our prediction show in September. 2 years ago, we were too low on the Canucks.
Yep.
Last season, we were way too high on them. So we will see. We will see what happens this season.
Yeah, and you look at LA. Like, what is LA's plan, right? Because they are an old team.
Yep.
Right.
Kopitar and Doughty.
They've got Fiala locked up, sure, but Kopitar is in the last year of his contract, right? He's 37. Right. They've got Byfield locked up. Deneau, they have 2 years left, but Adrian Kempe, UFA after this year. They signed Kuzmenko. He'll be a UFA after this year. Corey Perry, who they signed at $2 million, right? Like that doesn't help them get any younger. Looking at their forward group doesn't excite me. I like Byfield a lot. But Trevor Moore doesn't particularly excite me as a player, right? He's a 50 point guy. But then you look at their defense. Yeah, Drew Doughty's making 11 this year and next, and he's 35.
Wow.
They gave 31-year-old Cody Ceci 4x4.5. Brian Dumoulin, 33 years old, 3 years, $4 million per. Joel Edmondson has 3 more years. He's 32.
This is hurting.
Kyle Burrows might be in their top 6 on the defensive side, right? Probably not. Probably Brant Clark instead, but still, right? And then even their goaltenders, right? Darcy Kemper, good goaltender, had a 922 last year, right? He was a big reason LA was as good as they were. He put up a 922. He's 35, right? For as good of a career Kemper has had, the year before he was an 890. He had essentially the best year of his career, second best year of his career. Actually, no, he had a couple of really good years in Arizona. Wow. But he had a real resurgence at 34. Might not happen again, right? And their backup's Anton Forsberg, who's also 32. So LA, there could be some drop off in LA, especially Kopitar's a heck of a player. What did he do last year? 67 points. He's been a 60 to 70 point guy for the last 6 years, essentially.
Yep.
But that'll start to tail off at some point. Hopefully it's soon, because we need LA to fall.
I didn't think much of Kempe before the season, but I was very impressed by him. And then Four Nations, he was good too. I was very impressed by Kempe.
Yeah, him and Fiala are both really good. But Kempe was 35 goal scorer last year. And he's going to be a UFA, and cap's going up more next year. He's making $5.5 now. He might be trying to make $8.5, $9 million next year.
Wow, that much,
right? If he's a 75 point, what are his stats? Last 2 years, 73 points, 75 points.
That's more than Besser.
Goals. Look at his goals the last 4 years: 35, 28, 41, 35. So he's a 30 plus goal scorer every year.
That's a great point. And how old is he?
Paid. He's 28. He'll be 29 when he's UFA. So it's prime for a big 7 by 9 million.
Yeah, you're right.
Or something along those lines, right?
We just talked about Besser getting 7 times 725, and Kempy's numbers are better. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And he's
Okay.
Can skate.
You had to throw that in.
That wasn't a shot at Besser. He's
No,
just a
I
good
know.
skater.
I know. Kempy's good. That was good. That was good. Oh, you want to do 5 minutes of people?
Let's do it.
All right. Get your questions in. Make them short and sweet, just like me. We got 5 minutes, and then we're going to wrap up tonight's show. So, and we're not going back. So type in now. New questions only.
I might go back a little. I'll try.
Okay,
I'll try.
You can. I'll just keep staring at.
The people are liking Utah a little bit.
They're liking the Blue Jays too. There's a lot of Blue Jays talk at the start of this stream. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. Hey, Mariners swept the Pirates, the worst team in baseball. So.
Hey, Zal, thanks for your question. We actually talked about this at length. If you go back to about the 25 minute mark when we were talking about Besser, that would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
This is a good one from Edmund. Given how Besser was resigned, you think Canucks can still circle back on Rossi or Josh Norris?
And I was really high on Rossi, especially going into the draft.
Yeah.
Going to the draft, I was ready. I was so ready for that first to get traded. Let's get Rossi in here, and this team can be dangerous. Instead, we got to keep the first, and we brought Besser back instead, which I'm okay with. Rossi's got some injury history, but I do really like the player. I just don't see what you pull to do that at this point, unless you are moving a defenseman. I just don't see it.
Yeah,
at least not this year.
Yeah, I think that ship has passed. And then there's a lot of, Josh Norris is best friends with Hughes, even though Hughes took a game misconduct, cross-check him in the back. Obviously, that shouldn't have. You like Josh Norris, or are you worried about his injury? And it was the same thing. We have to give up.
I'm not as familiar with Josh Norris's game because I didn't spend a lot of time looking into it like we did with Rossi. Norris makes $8 million a year now. He's got a pretty good cap hit, but he's a fine player. But at his cap hit, I'd rather have a Rossi for a lower cap hit because Norris hasn't really had that production, right? And he also hasn't played a full season, and that would be a little alarming.
You like Mason McTavish? I do.
I like him.
Yeah,
but
he's young.
Yeah, let me pull up the old.
And while he's doing that, Irvin, I wouldn't worry about who we trade away because Anaheim would say the same thing. If you make a trade, you make a trade. Obviously, we've made trades with Edmonton and before.
So he's got no contract, right? He's an RFA. 52 points last year, and he's only 22. That could be a 2C option, right? I wouldn't hate that, but I don't think he'd be super cheap.
Yeah, I agree. Odds of Drew O'Connor improving. Good speed.
He's all speed.
All gas and no brakes, as they say.
I don't know if I love that contract now.
Yeah.
At the 2.5 for 2 years, I think that was signed quite quickly.
Yes.
Heck of a skater though, man. There's some weapon there. Did we even mention him when we were doing our lineups?
No. Well, I did put him in the top 9 though. We mentioned him in the pile of guys competing for the 4th line spot.
Yeah, and I mean if he can take a step, right? He's 27. I'm not expecting a big step, but he's got the size, he's got the speed. He can be an effective 4th liner that can play up on your 3rd if you need him to, but I don't necessarily love 2.5 on him.
Speaking of lines, do you believe that Ratu can be a good 3C?
Yeah, I do. Especially ceiling wise. I think he's ceiling in a perfect world is a number 2 center. I think he probably projects closer to a 3 right now. He's still young, right? He's still really young, and he's been getting better every year. I think, again, maybe not this year. I think you've got guys that can fill there. Again, we sort of have that glut of manpower, but I wouldn't hate him being your number 4, right? I'd take him over Niels Amon for sure.
Yes. Two more. Do you think Quinn had a role with the extensions and new contracts for Demko, Besser, and Garland? And then I'll throw in a second one. And do you think those contract extensions and signings have a positive impact on his decision making?
I think it definitely has a positive impact, especially seeing all the fact that Besser made it pretty clear that he didn't really want to leave, right?
Yep.
That he never really resigned himself to actually leaving Vancouver, right? And same thing with Demko, same thing with Garland. It sounds like people genuinely like to be here, even if there were especially with all the drama last year. I wouldn't expect a Besser to come back, right? But he did anyways. I wouldn't, expect Garland to sign long term right after that, but he did. So clearly there's something keeping these guys around. And it's not necessarily the money, because they could have gotten that money elsewhere very, very easily. I think it helps. And a lot of you don't see a lot of players leave. Now it helps that there's the whole New Jersey narrative. There's his two brothers, etc. But a lot of star players don't leave very often, right? Do we really believe Connor McDavid's leaving at the end of his contract? No, right?
No.
But because Hughes has his two brothers in New Jersey, they think everyone, and who knows, maybe that is the case, but I can't hurt keeping those guys around. I'm sure Quinn has a bit of a role in everything with some of these guys, right? I'm sure they're talking to Quinn when they're signing these extensions as well.
Yep.
Especially if they're all good buddies, right? I imagine they're sort of talking to each other, be like, "Hey, are you thinking about leaving? Are you thinking about sticking around?" Right? Obviously, they're not going to tell anyone that. But if you're Thatcher Demco, you might want to know if you're going to have Quinn Hughes in front of you 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And maybe that helps.
I love what you said too about it's going to have positive impact, because I've heard a few analysts say even the subtle, not presumption, but peer pressure in a good way, that hey, Besser, Demko, and Garland can all say, I'm staying here, I'm seeing this through, and they don't have to say to Brock, they don't have to say to Quinn, so you must too. But the fact that they've done that, that could subconsciously, Hughes might say, I should stick this through too, kind of thing. Exactly what you said about, you rarely see star players leave unless they're disgruntled. So we'll see. And then for Braden Coots, usually a guy picked 15th overall, you're looking at draft +2 at least.
Yeah,
he's not going to play this year, and maybe does Abbotsford next year, in 2 years from now, and maybe a late call up. But I think we're looking at least draft +2.
Yeah, and he seems like a guy that's going to be a more long-term play, which I'm fine with.
Speaking of long-term, I think we have decided we're not going to do shows for at least the next 2 or 3 weeks. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. We've got we're going into the dog days of summer when it comes to the NHL. Obviously, it's going to be great weather here. It's going to rain tomorrow. So we're gonna take a couple weeks. We will regroup in, I guess, late July or August at some point. We'll figure it out from there. But for you guys, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. That's the only way you won't miss it. All these people that are here, either they're checking Mondays, which we appreciate, or they've got the bell on. And that's going to be your ticket. So make sure you've got that. If you missed any part of this show, you can rewind back to the beginning. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform. Same as always. We've done this hundreds of times at this point. I think that's where I'm at. Clay, any parting words this
Beautiful.
night?
I'll talk to you, but probably not on the show. No show for me tonight, you guys. If anyone wants to join me tomorrow night after our anniversary dinner, I'm gonna drag a very reluctant Gail onto my stream tomorrow for some time. So my next show is tomorrow night at 10:30. But tonight, gonna take it easy. Make sure I'm not streaming at midnight when the anniversary starts. Even though I'm sure Gail's sleeping. But no, overall, I'm glad we had a positive show tonight. And I'm glad that I just feel like not only just with you and me, Parker, but more importantly with Canucks fans overall, they're not predicting a Stanley Cup champion anytime soon, but there is more optimism. There's really an attitude of parking last year behind us and going forward, which is what we're doing too. So I'm cautiously optimistic. How's that?
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Hopefully it just right off the last one, build off of 23-24.
Love it.
All right, folks. Thank you all very much for joining. Have a good next couple of weeks. As Clay said, he'll be streaming a little bit here and there, so make sure you're subscribed there. Otherwise, we will see you next time.